7 o'clock. Time to call the Monday, December 19th, Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission workshop meeting to order. Staff, please, presence of the board.
Ms. Berkman?
Here.
Mr. Deck?
Here.
Mr. Horkay?
Here.
Mr. Johns? Dr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Maui?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
Ms. Spolgier? Okay, we have a quorum.
Mike did her email late this afternoon that he's still recovering from knee surgery apparently.
Yes.
Apparently he's not ambulating well and will not be present tonight. So everybody that's coming, just item next would be approval of our minutes of the November 16th, 2022 Plan Commission meeting.
December 5th.
There's no questions or comments.
Make a
If somebody would
motion.
move, yeah.
Make a motion to approve the APC minutes from December 5th, 2022 as written.
Second.
Second was Victor McCarty. So the motion from Jane, second from Victor. Everybody in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Minutes are approved. Rules and procedures for tonight's meeting. We have a consent agenda item and one workshop item.
Yes, for tonight's meeting, we will have the following structure. The department will introduce the workshop petition stating when the item was last before the Plan Commission. Plan Commission and petitioner will then discuss the changes made to the ordinance using the provided exhibits as a guide for the discussion. Once the discussion is finished, the department will summarize the final changes that are expected to be made prior to the petition returning for recommendation or subsequent workshop meeting. For rules of conduct, we ask you please not disrupt proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. Also, a reminder that this room is on one microphone, so make sure you speak up, speak clearly, and try to minimize side conversations while people are talking. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one item on our consent agenda that is here for our approval tonight. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda item?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Will staff please call the roll?
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Spolgier? Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. We have our one workshop item. Woods Robinson Briggs PUD Amendment 2. Staff would go ahead and start the dialogue with a brief overview.
Yeah, so we'll provide a brief introduction to the item and then we'll jump into the conversation. So good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. The item before you tonight is a workshop discussion opportunity for the proposed Woods Robinson Briggs PUD amendment. The main focus of this evening's discussion will be around the proposed diagrammatic concept site plan and the associated character exhibits. So as mentioned in the staff summary at the previous APC workshop meeting on November 21st, the petitioner was requested to explore the feasibility of providing a more diagrammatic / bubble-like concept plan with additional supporting character exhibits. City staff has worked together with the petitioner to develop an approach that concurs with this request. The petitioner has requested this workshop discussion meeting to review the approach and the associated character exhibits with APC members. The petitioner intends to gather APC feedback prior to proceeding further into the PUD amendment process, such as refining ordinance language and further developing exhibits. So with that, that concludes staff introduction. At this time, we'll turn it over to the petitioner to add any words or any notes that you would like at this time. The only thing I left have.
That will take substantially less than an hour and a half.
Yeah, the only thing I
Plus I got candy.
Thank you for the candy. So with that, I'll turn it over to the petitioner.
Well, thank you. I got a question first. On that previous thing you just voted on the multifamily, how is it they could already start their basements before you vote on something like that? Because they already got their foundations in on all those apartments over
Are you sure that's not the J.C. Hart project?
there. Is it two different
Yeah, they're
ones?
two different projects.
There's more apartments going on there other than the J.C. Hart?
The J.C. Hart ones are, those are on Virginia Rose near Tomlinson, right, near Wheeler.
Yeah.
And these, let's pull up the location.
Huh.
Off of 181st.
Yeah, and these are further north than west. So the ones going up and now are down in this area and then off the map, further south.
That's incorrect. That new road that you got connected going through that from Oak Ridge, nice.
Yeah.
That's real nice. That'll help a bunch next season. So, back to the
Grand
wood,
Park Boulevard, and we did find, if anybody hasn't noticed yet, or maybe it's not on that.
what's that, John?
So we did find a place to hang up the John Dipple Boulevard sign.
Oh, nice.
That's good.
Well, I like the Grand Park Boulevard, you know, it's gonna go straight out and good move.
Picture
Um,
of Grand Park.
Yeah.
So on our Woods Robinson, staff has done a lot of work. And I think maybe we ought to start with the bubble plan. You want to start there or the character exhibits?
Yeah, the bubble plan is fine.
Yeah, the bubble plan, I think we kind of took the last meeting and we took a first stab at the bubble plan. It's funny, I went back and looked at the Darktown one I did back in 17 and it was a bubble plan. So it kind of went full circle here. So if you look at it, we have the plaza, the gathering area here, water feature, promenade in this area, and then the commercial recreation facility, sports tech, mixed use area one. And there's a reason we had two different areas. This area under the existing PUD allowed us to have one-story buildings adjacent to 191st Street, but not back there. Another mixed-use area, and then the church event reception area. Pickleball racket center, commercial recreational racket support if we go outside. And this remains residential at this time, future. But I can tell you, in talking with all the builders, I mean, the big thing's gonna happen about March of next year. I mean, contracts are down to zero. So I talked with all three of the big ones, and as soon as their contracts run out by March, April next year, you're not gonna see a lot of building next year. Now, we're gonna push ahead with ours infrastructure. I believe we're down to a couple of issues on the Weekly property, but then the permits ought to be issued, but we'll move forward with our roads and our drainage. And then, you know, the commercial, you know, interest rates have kind of made you repencil some things, but I think we'll still move forward. I mean, there's still a lot of interest on the commercial. So we may outshoot the single family. So that's the bubble plan, first pass at it. So we're looking for comments and thoughts and so forth. Before, go ahead.
One thing that I would just like to add, each element on this bubble plan, and if you could maybe zoom in just a touch more. We've worked closely with the petitioner to identify major site elements on this bubble plan, and each major element has a character exhibit attached to it. That was kind of the idea, was this request for a more diagrammatic visual approach to organizing major site elements. If we were going to remove some of the more fine-tuned detailing on the site plan, we would capture that detail in a visual way to a character exhibit. The title of each character exhibit is the same, more or less the same title of each major site element that you see on here. So this is really meant to be a visual diagrammatic organization of the location and the relationship between major site elements. And then the exhibits that the petitioners provide us imagery, and we've pulled politely suggested some imagery as well to be added to those character exhibits. We as a department would require the future development items to be developed to be similar to the character and quality of the imagery that you see on those exhibits. So just wanted to add that in there as building upon this concept plan.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Or should I wait until we're all?
If there's,
No, I mean, I like the idea.
Mhm.
The question I have is, we have the bubble diagram and then we have character exhibits. And how do you administer a character exhibit? Do we also need some verbiage on what those character exhibits, some of the features that are in there? Or how do I, because I don't understand how
yeah,
you say, wait, it doesn't look like that, because Birch doesn't want it to look exactly like that picture, but.
yeah, so we want to, for example, with the water feature, which is on the next page. So the water feature is identified
Mhm.
on the site plan, the location and the general area that it needs to be located. And then the petitioner has provided us imagery, and we've, like I said, we've suggested some imagery as well. We've tried to be intentional with the imagery and not just be illustrative with it.
Right.
So when we look at these elements, there's clearly vertical elements here as far as the water feature goes. There's repetitive elements that show some height, a pool of water, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's one thing that we've talked about is, you know, we kind of wanted to, the petitioner wanted to take the temperature on the approach the site plan was moving in, but adding some more detail into the ordinance is something that I think the petitioner would like some feedback on,
Okay.
and we would like some feedback on. as
Yeah,
well,
and
too.
that's kind of where I was going, because when I looked at, say, the fountain or the water feature, I saw certain elements. I saw height, I saw
Mhm.
size, I saw pedestrian access. So I
Okay.
tried to write those things down, that if there were then to be some part of the ordinance that would codify that, those were the things. Is that kind of what you wanted us to do?
Yeah, I think that was one component of the conversation, was to see how everyone interpreted that, you know, and how I think, you know, as we've talked, we see a lot of the same things in these pictures, but you know, you have a good point.
What are
that-
the same things? Do we, what is
Adding-
the consensus about
Yeah,
those
and
things?
adding, I think we would be comfortable adding more tangible performance design standard language than maybe a product description that
Right.
kind of rambles on, you know, like that
Right.
might be a little bit more
Okay.
difficult to enforce, but things such as the size of the water feature, that could be easily enforced. If there needs to be some sort of vertical element, pedestrian connectivity, those are things that can be pretty easily measured.
But we're on the same page, and
Yeah.
that's what I was.
Okay.
I have a question.
Natalie, about that. And you hit the mark, is what Dr. Keller was just talking about. I had the same experience as I was going through, words would pop out, and I thought we could actually put this into the language.
Okay.
So you did a really nice job, we'll probably combined effort, or whoever, put all this stuff together.
Yeah.
Better out of nine.
Draw out from
We-
us and pull us from design back into planning where we belong. I think
Yeah,
this effort in support of a bubble diagram, yeah, there may be some things where we tweak and add more notes here and there to get the right balance, but I like the direction this is going.
Okay. yeah, I mean, we collectively, we understand this is an important project, so we have carefully coordinated with the petitioner on this project, maybe a little bit more than we typically do, but I think it's been a good coordination effort between the petitioner and our department as far as the city goes.
And Joe had a question, go ahead.
My name is Joe Morris, part of the Wood Family Farm. Part of the park, you've all met me. Not talking about that today, but we've had some really good discussions with the city, and I think that's great, and you'll be happy to learn that. Weston, will you please go back to the concept plan?
Yeah.
So as our family still owns 22 and a half acres on the east side of this property, and we're currently leasing it to 191st Street, a long-term lease. And I've got a question on the pedestrian area.
Pedestrian problem?
Yes, just want to make sure that that's not going to be restricted or codified is the word you used, or that's not, if this doesn't happen, or 20 years from now, that we're able to put a building there if, in this plan, that we're able to, and I need to work with the developer here, but make sure that there's nothing that says that, hey, there might be a pedestrian area here now, but on our property in the future, it can be X, Y, and Z.
Can you define which part of the bubble diagram is your property exactly? I know the park is, but
Sure.
Oh, is there?
you're
the
talking
lease
about.
line?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lease,
It basically
line.
runs right between.
It's about right here.
Okay, so you're to the east of that.
And over up to the park.
Okay.
Restricted. I just want to make sure that we're not being pigeonholed into something that, in the future, whatever that looks like, that we're able to
I see what you're saying.
put.
I think the uses are already written.
And they are.
Yeah, and it doesn't affect those. It just talks about some other added layers that would go on those. I
And,
said,
and it looks like this is where your pedestrian area is, this is where the gathering area is. If there's a lease that ends and it becomes, we sell it, we, have another builder that we can, we're just, that we're not restricted.
I think that's the goal of this bubble plan is
Okay.
to provide an element of flexibility
And that's
in the
fine.
design, but the pedestrian promenade will be required. I mean, that's for sure, based on this plan, but the organization of buildings, the layout of buildings, kind of the fine-tuned details that you're bringing up, that's kind of the idea here is that this general area that's outlined as mixed-use area 1, it would need to contain pedestrian promenade and a water feature. And this general organization, that's kind of the thought process.
No, I think that's a discussion I'm gonna have to have with the developer about, we're still we need to have more discussions on that.
Okay.
Which brings me to kind of a similar situation, only because I've watched other PUDs play out and what can happen when there are these various site features, amenities, and one builder doesn't want to build them, so first guy comes in and builds whatever. And it doesn't necessarily have to, because we're not saying the promenade has to be right here. It just has to be in this general area. So then they don't build it. Then next guy doesn't build it and leaves it for the third guy, which then it doesn't fit anymore. Do you know what I mean? And so I love the approach, but when it gets to the practical nature of it and who does what and when gets to be the hard part, to make sure that we get it all in and that it makes
Yeah,
sense.
we've had some
Yes.
ordinances. I know the Spring Mill Station southwest corner where the kite building's going up now by the apartments and all of that. They have a provision in their ordinance that says that the certain like common elements have to be in before the building permit can be released for the third building or things like that. I know they have a couple separate timers for a couple different things. So that's one way to handle it. Obviously, an issue with that is if you get one large building, then what happens if there's not another building or if there only end up being 2? But those are ways that we can ensure that, or that the promenade be in by the time, within a year of the C of O being issued for the first building, things like that.
Yeah, and that's just the tricky part with these PUDs is, once they get pieced off to whatever developer and the development plan comes through and it complies. I mean, we just can't find another way, to say this complies, we have to approve it. But then we wound up screwing the rest of it, out of something. So it's just something that has happened more than once. And so I think we need to be very careful in how we do this one.
And I'm hoping we're not starting down a path similar to the park discussion that we've already had, that Birch had acknowledged that there was a property line that went through the mixed use area 1, I guess is what that is up on the screen there, and that there wouldn't be a building passing literally on that line, that there's going to be
That's correct. Yeah.
separation so that should something happen in the future, there's not going to be a building that's somehow or other
Yeah, and this
encumbered one way or another. But we need to be focusing on Amendment 2 to the PUD that already exists. And if it somehow or other isn't still yet clear in its own unique way to this part of the property, to the Collective Wood family, that's not our discussion in this meeting. We need to focus on what it is that we're trying to hammer out for the details of Amendment 2. And I guess maybe there's still some family and developer dialogue that needs to occur, but I don't see that that's actually something we're going to help solve here.
Well, and PUD ordinance does say, at least when it comes in for a vote for the ordinance, it needs to be under one ownership or control.
Yeah.
So that we don't have this kind of thing going on.
For
Because-
the express purpose of
Yes.
avoiding this kind
Well,
of.
there's not
hang-up.
anything going on. I have a 49-year lease here.
Right,
Okay?
right.
We have a zoned piece of property, and, so I agree with what Robert said. Let's focus on what we need to do here.
Right.
And then as we submit plans, we're focusing on our own property first, and we'll move this way. Now, the church, which you'll see examples today, that's moved down the field quickly. It's called the Fields Church. They're already at Maple Glen School. I don't know if you knew that or not. And so the church wedding chapel reception hall, they've already retained an architect, so that's moving pretty well. The only thing we may do there is we have the Girth property coming in, is decide, to put one of the buildings on Girth and the other one on the lease property. So, but I agree. I think the bubble plan is what you guys want us to do, so, and to have the features within the areas. So that's, like, if we go to the character exhibits, that'll help a bunch.
Other commissioner comments regarding pluses, minuses, likes, dislikes on the more generic version of our site plan, now being bubbles instead of actual nice straight lines of actual expected buildings?
This is more of a general question. For the mixed-use building areas, was there a requirement that there be more than one tenant in these buildings, but that it not be like strip center? I was having trouble trying to figure out what we had in there for the mixed use.
Well,
'cause I know
adjacent
there's
to
supposed to be multiple.
191st Street, you could have a single tenant. That was a minimum 5,000 square foot building or bigger along 191st Street. But if you go back to the water feature again, Weston, you had a good example. Here's what we envisioned for the mixed use. Right here, multiple tenants down below with the 2-story, living units above. So, would one tenant take, the footprint of these buildings are between 10 and 20,000 square feet. I doubt if one tenant would take a whole first floor. It would be rare. I can't think of anyone that could do it. No restaurant, no bar, no shopping. But,
And there are plenty of 20,000 square foot people out there doing business.
Yeah, but they
that's
wouldn't
not
go
what we
here
want
on
on
these
this site,
apartments.
for sure, right.
Yeah. It'd be nice, be easier, cheaper, but I don't see that happening.
Isn't what was, in my case anyway, what was anticipated, that some variety will bring better synergy to the project probably.
Mhm.
I guess I'm fine with the bubble diagram, and I'm fine with the illustrations. And then what I did was went through each illustration and picked out things that I thought should be then somehow codified.
And I'm basically of a similar take here, that the bubble diagram, I think it's going to work reasonably well. I like the fact that the bubbles interconnect and overlap. I'd like to make sure that there's some ability to be able to say, yeah, this could go a little further this way, or this might go a little farther that way. We have paint ourselves and other people in the corner too often with, well, this is where it's supposed to become something else. The line shouldn't be hard. So I like the way that came out.
How do we handle parking lots within the bubble diagrams?
Yeah, so the parking and circulation, that would default to the design standards in the UDO, which talk about pedestrian connectivity, parking ratios, circulation. Public Works would have a say in the circulation, the safe circulation of vehicles, traffic, and that sort of thing. The PUD also, the current PUD as is today, has like a minimum depth of parking along 191st Street. So that would be a consideration that we would take when we review the detailed development plan to
Yeah,
ensure
something,
that's in place.
Birch was really thoughtful when we had it all laid out on how the parking, because you had made a comment way back when we first saw this, that we just didn't want to see a steep asphalt. And you were really thoughtful in how you kind of came back and did that. And I'm just wondering, as we move forward with this bubble.
Well, Cindy actually was the one that put up no more than 3 rows of parking along 191st Street. That was her idea, which works, because we want to push the buildings forward, so we tucked the parking behind. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how you deal with it, other than, you know, when you see a detailed development plan. But, you know, with the big mixed-use buildings in that area, the parking's gonna be kind of, you know, around the surface of the buildings. And if we do the promenade down the middle, that walking area, obviously we'll have parking on either side of the buildings and maybe the end. So it won't be the most convenient, you know, but it's not designed to be an apartment where you park right in front of them and walk up. It's designed to be a more resort Airbnb where, you know, we want you to walk in front of a store, spend money as you go to your room.
Right.
And I see the process kind of like what's already happened. If we have to put in writing, in addition to all of the things that apply for safe circulation and things like that, it's no more than 3 rows or whatever it is for a particular, I'm not even saying specific to this, but this concept, if we're using a bubble diagram, I think we just write things like that in there.
I agree.
Instead of seeing a parking lot layout, we say, these are the things that need to hold true here. We don't want to see it from here, or it can't be more than this amount from this side or whatever. Is that from staff? Is that the way the process will go if we're shifting back out of the building layout to the bubble diagrams?
Yes, and there are a couple of standards already written in the original ordinance.
For this one, yeah.
In this Woods Robinson PUD from 2021, that would still apply today. As long as the standards aren't written out, they would still apply. So one is the maximum of 3 rows of parking, 2 associated drive aisles in the 191st Street front yard of District 1, and the other maximum of 1 parking row and 1 associated drive aisle in the yard abutting the Monon Trail. So there's a couple things already, but you can definitely add more restrictions.
And one thing I'm anticipating in the next hour or however long we go through the character exhibits, because we're transitioning in an amendment back to a bubble diagram, we're not doing a new PUD. You're probably going to get comments, I'm guessing, from all of us that do and do not apply to the amendment topics, because now we're looking through all of these with this new context, if you will. So you'll have to obviously sort through which ones are specific to amendment. But I know when I marked it up, I didn't hold back on that stuff, and I'll share these comments. It may be helpful to you, but it may be stuff that really doesn't matter because it's already in the ordinance outside the amendment.
There's a section.
Oh, sorry, but I just, before we leave this parking conversation, that has changed because we had compliance with the site plan. And I think District 2, isn't it on 191st Street as well?
District 1 is the whole 191st Street.
Yeah, I believe District 1
The
is.
purple is still
Yeah.
This is
all
all
District 1.
District 1.
Okay, so that would apply to all of that. Okay.
In the original PUD, under the residential section, there is a section that talks about design elements. And I was wondering if that would be a place, if we could add a section on design elements for District 1, and that would be where these things might be placed. The residential design element section talks about 360-degree architecture, general things like that, and I thought a section on design elements under District 1 might be an appropriate place to put some of the things we're talking about, seeing in those pictures.
So under the Racket Center, don't we have pretty complete design elements on that as far as roof? And I thought we talked at length with Dane that day.
Yeah, either
The other
original-
buildings, maybe not as much, but I think we defaulted to something as far as masonry, glass and all that.
Yeah,
Right, and Birch, I'm not talking necessarily about building materials, I'm talking about things like you're showing in these concepts, like we would say a fountain would have to have, as you said, height elements,
Yeah.
size, pedestrian, that kind of thing.
That's something that would in a residential area would typically go under an open space amenity chapter because we have that in the UDO, but since commercial doesn't require that, I think having a separate section and calling it design elements or common elements or
Right.
things like that would be fine.
I'll make my comments short and sweet, that we were over at the Criminal Mart and the yard this weekend, and it truly pained me that we had to go, especially the yard, across the county for something like that. So the quicker we can pick something up like that and plop it down across from Grand Park, I'm good to go. So I appreciate all the character exhibits and so forth, and you bringing this forth here. And I know that it will be heavily utilized.
But back to your parking, we have to have a good balance here because we don't have requirement ratios like for medical 4-to-1 and like that. But developers, a lot of them tend to be on the skinny side of parking, in my opinion, and on radiuses that drive me nuts. You know, I won't talk about it, but if you look at the ones I've done, I have more parking than anybody. But, you know, here we gotta be delicate with it because the sea of parking, while we need to support that corner building, at the same time, we have to balance it with the Airbnbs. So you're gonna see pockets of parking. Plus, what's gonna end up happening, Grand Park people will end up parking there and walking across. So, you know, I may have some gated areas, you know, for the Airbnb people, so they know they have their spots. Don't know yet. Now, the parking on the racquetball, I think, you know, we've done a pretty good job there. We took most of it north. We're gonna hide a lot of it with a berm from the residential, and we're breaking it up with land, you know, parking islands. You know,
Well, I think you had done a really nice job. I'm just concerned, that was substantial compliance. You put the thought into it, and now we're doing bubbles and
I get
as
it.
different people come in, does it all of a sudden become this big ass wall?
There's still parking rules that apply to any parking lot, right? I mean, so I guess I'm not sure what the,
I think what Kristen is saying, and this was a concern for me, what Birch presented the last time on your concept plan, and I think Andre asked me that, what did I see on this? And I said, well, I saw buildings that were kind of clustered with, you know, pedestrian access between and among them and parking that was clustered around those. The original concept plan was a big parking lot, you know, a row of buildings, like a strip.
Right.
Yeah, and then a big asphalt parking lot. And I think what we liked about the last one and what would be really attractive and probably fit with what you're planning there is more of these clusters, you know, of parking. I don't know how, or if we should say that somewhere. I don't know. We've also talked about, you know, this promenade and walkable areas. We have, and I think Pam just brought it up, we have an open space requirement for residential, not for commercial. And while I don't want to do an open space requirement, maybe if we go through some of these exhibits, we can say in that exhibit, I see grassy areas, I see benches, I see some common areas that connect with other pedestrian walkable areas. And that would be more of a design element without actually saying we want to have, you know, 5% pedestrian areas. I don't want to put a percentage or a number on that. But to state what we're seeing, I don't know, that's, if we go through them, maybe we could get everybody's comments on the pictures.
Well, open area, I don't have a problem with. Let's talk about grassy versus open area, just in general. If you go back to your entry boulevard character exhibit, please. So we have 3 road cuts. You know, this one, if you look at road cut 1 that leads up to Weekly, this is what I see envisioned, right? Now, is it that type of tree? I don't know yet. But, you know, I want to sprinkle both sides of it so the grass is green, flowers are good. In the wintertime, I have light, so that's a light boulevard going up. Now, going to the Grand Park Boulevard, which if you could lose those buildings, and those trees, what you're gonna see, and I don't know, if we put an exhibit in there with the trees with the concrete around them, remember the great?
And other exhibits.
Is it, so when you look at Grand Park Boulevard, I wanna have that nice big open space, but able for people to sit, walk up and down the street. So the trees there, if it's kind of like New York style, you know, they put them with grates. I
Right.
don't know if we're showing one here or not today.
I'm seeing the same thing that you're saying, Bert.
Yeah, right, so this would be Grand Park Boulevard.
Right,
That, not necessarily grass. That would be
Right.
your building and your big courtyard. So, but, you know, road cut one, that, you know, I want to have a beautiful tree line entry for the people going home. You know, Grand Park Boulevard, more, you know, New Yorkie style, a little more walkable, let's stand out and party outside. Because I want to attract the Grand Park people across the street. That's why those two corners are important to me.
well, what I saw when I looked at that Exhibit E entryway were a lot of trees
Mhm.
and a median between the streets on at least, you know, that one area. That's what I took away from those, I don't know.
So that's road cut
Anybody
one.
else have any opinions?
So we got 3 roads going into this property. Road cut one's the first one we're building, opens up weekly. Grand Park Boulevard's the next one. Then road cut 3's down the road a little bit.
Which one is, I was just about to pull up the map, but you could tell me better just by.
Harvest Trails is road cut 1.
The eastern.
Grand Park Boulevard's
Or
road cut
the eastern
2.
one is,
One, is what he's referring to.
all right,
It just goes 1, 2.
Just for.
going east to west.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify, the site plan right now just has Entry Boulevard identified. Again, this will have to be further refined to identify the additional roadways that are serving this development and the associated imagery. So just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Dave, we have detailed plans right now under review, so they.
I just didn't without, I couldn't figure out where the site was left, right, without opening up the plan, so I didn't know which one was Grand Park Boulevard, where it cuts through.
Dead in the middle, and then
Okay.
road cut 1's the one on the east.
Gotcha.
Are we gonna start character exhibit feedback now and go
Yeah.
through these, or I wasn't sure when to?
Yeah, you can dive in.
You've already hit a lot of things, I want to validate, that's what I'm seeing, the trees sprinkled down there, yes, the boulevard in the middle, the separation, yes, well, we should probably be on E, right, the entry boulevard is where we started. The, future landscaping, whatever you call the top left picture on E, that's your center, you know, where you've got those important corners kind of draw in there. I think that is important as well.
I don't know if we're sticking with the medium, that's up to Jonathan now and all that. Hopefully we'll keep a little bit. This, I see, and I want to stay away from heavily mulched areas, because one, I think they deteriorate quickly, and, you know, weeds and all that. So, you know, I see trees with mulch on the entryway there, and then the medium there will probably be skinnied up. I don't know what right of way they're finally giving me down. But if we do anything, you know, we'd have one row of trees going down the middle of it, or hedges, something that gives it a green pop, put some color, you know. But I think with the buildings I'm working with on both corners, did we put any of those in today? We did, didn't we? One of them? One of the buildings I was gonna put on the corner.
Yeah, it's further.
Yeah, so as we get to it, you'll see, I'm gonna try to balance the site with 2 cool buildings on the corner that scream, hey, come inside here. So, but yeah, we'll have some color and some pop down the middle.
You're speaking of the middle drive then, of the 3, right?
This would be Grand Park Boulevard. Because we'll have the new roundabout, right? And so, coming out,
So it'd be something to balance out the plaza on the other side?
yeah. Again, I see lights in the middle here also, kind of give it, you know, some cool lines going in. And maybe they change Christmas time, summertime, whatever. But, you know, I want, this is my grand entrance. So I want to play, you know, a lot of glass on the front there with lights inside the building so people see what's going on.
So Birch, on the entry Exhibit E, Andre and I have told you what we kind of see. Are those things something that staff should work on codifying? Is there anything else that you want to add to that list?
I think, you know, we're all in agreement on road cut 1, Harvest Trails. nice, tree lined boulevard to the residential. I'd like to come up with some more, exhibits of Grand Park Boulevard based on some drawings that, I don't want to overshoot my skis here and say I'm gonna have a 20-foot median there. If I only have 15, what am I gonna do with it?
Are you gonna likely split out these character exhibits to handle 3 separately, since it does sound like there's a different intent?
I think we might. I think we should.
That's what I was.
Grand Park Boulevard.
Yeah.
needs to have
Let's
its own-
plan on going back to Grand Park Boulevard and spend a little time on it.
Okay.
I didn't think about this when we were in our.
Yeah, that's what I kind of mentioned a few minutes ago. Right now, the site plan just identifies the main entry boulevard. But we can certainly break it out in more detail if the petitioner would like to do that.
Not to be joking, now, what do you think of that street line? Kind of joking. That was mean, wasn't it? Sorry.
No.
I don't know. Huh?
Have you talked to Jeremy?
Uh.
Okay. Well, after this discussion.
No kidding.
It's a level of detail beyond what I would want to actually have codified. But I was glad to hear you say you're not in favor of the heavily mulched. To me,
No.
mulch or even the ground cover that's in the middle image, I don't like running the curb like that.
No.
It needs to be a clean, consistent.
Augusta look is what I'm looking for down through there. Flowers at the base of the trees, sprinklers, power so I can electrify the trees in the wintertime. We're gonna have a sign down there.
We don't want to put all that in the ordinance, though.
No, I'm just saying, but that one there is pretty darn close where we're gonna be, and we have a trail next to it on both sides of it, I believe.
I mentioned this is up to Jonathan Nail,
What
whether
is
or not there's going to be a median.
the width of the road is, because I'm working on a road impact fee agreement, so it's gonna be a public road, so
Right.
I can assure you, they have all the input on it.
Which is understandable. I hadn't thought there was any risk that there wouldn't be a median of some significance. the way
Well,
you're
I
showing
want
it
to
on
be
your
in there
plans
because
for
I
the
want an
longest
escape
time.
zone, because we have a crossing area that about midway through, kind of your point of public safety. That's why we kind of bifurcate the uses. We shouldn't have a lot of crossover. Now some people may go to the pickleball, come over to the bar over here. But, if we can train them to go at that walkthrough, people cut wherever they want to cut. So I figured we'd have what I call suicide landing areas. People can stop in the middle.
Pedestrian safety.
Yeah, those
A
suicide
little more
zones,
PC about it.
the roundabouts.
So Weston, what do you take away from Exhibit E that are the points that we all,
Well,
or at least those of us who've spoken?
yeah, we've discussed this as a department, and things that, I see are, a mixture of shade trees, ornamental trees, and ground cover. I see seasonal interest in those images, maybe, planting beds. There's lawn areas, landscape planting beds in general, that type of thing. That's what we see as.
And the
as we've
median
talked
for
about.
Grand Park Boulevard.
And the
Not
median.
talking about how wide it is, just that there
But
would be a
maybe,
median there.
Yeah, it sounds like we need to have some conversations with Public Works based on, these statements. So, that's something that, again, we can further coordinate that.
Okay, so you feel you can
That's fine.
codify those things in some fashion?
Yeah, we can certainly find a way to require like some sort of benchmark to ensure that these elements are in there.
Understanding this particular exhibit applies or will be put into use in 3 different areas that are all
Yeah,
individually unique. The upper left is pretty much the only one that would be Grand Park Boulevard. The ones to the right,
yeah,
very much a residential in character, and that would be for the residential streets. The one in the middle, I'm not sure I saw a lot of use for that. Just
yeah. So based on these statements, as a department, we would require these to be broken out into additional exhibits, one for this entry drive, one for this entry drive. That way we can enforce it later on down the road. But I don't foresee us as a department requiring like a certain number, just because, again, the width of the median may change. There are kind of underlying standards for street trees already in place, so we would certainly enforce that. But, there's clearly an intent, and I see an intent in these images to provide
The
a
design
landscape
standard.
design, that but provides ground cover, understory trees, shade trees, some sort of maybe decorative or seasonal interest element of that nature.
I would say this as far as not wanting to over enforce this at Grand Park Boulevard where you have your flashy corners. Wouldn't want the trees to start as close as they do to the corner of any of these edges.
And then, that's the greenery we use in the medium would be different, but, that's why I wanted you to see how it's gonna do any trees would be integrated into the concrete with grades and kind of that approach.
But like the top left corner,
Yeah,
because of the buildings that's in that image,
yeah.
those trees help
Hide
obscure
them.
partially.
Yeah, hides the apartments.
And you don't want to do that at those first corners, you want to start farther back.
Yeah, well, there won't be that many trees along there anyways. The greenery would go down the middle. So that's actually your corner plaza.
Are you gonna have an entry monument here too?
On the sign, entry monument sign,
Yeah, I'm just wondering where that's going.
Well,
If you're gonna have-
I kind of, Weekly's gonna have one down on their end road, on Road Cut 1. And, I, with all the different uses inside, I just don't know how I can make a sign make sense other than maybe just a project sign. But to put a pylon sign with a bunch of lights there, I wasn't planning on it.
That would downgrade your,
Well, I just don't think I can do it. I mean, who's gonna pay for it if there's
Well, I was
20?
wondering if you were and kind of incorporating that into almost a piece of like artwork to go. And
Well-
at the front, like where those flowers are, something that,
I
that way
think
people
we're-
would know it's a little destination, if you will.
Yeah, I've been struggling with that one.
I'm just
Kinda-
asking, because I didn't know,
Yeah.
so often with a big project like this, they would have some kind of other signage.
Yeah.
So,
I just think it's hard to put a pylon sign out there and I have 20 different bars and restaurants. It'll end up being a marquee and that kind of, the big buildings on the front will have their own signs on the buildings, right? They'll have their normal, whatever they're allowed to do based on square footage. I really wasn't planning on putting a sign here on Grand Park Boulevard.
Be glad not to have it.
Yeah.
And frankly,
No.
we don't need them the way we used to.
No,
It's
you're
not
exactly
really
right.
stuff.
So I'm struggling with that same thing down at Grand Millennium, what we're doing for the library and MOB. I planned a small monument sign, but it's funny, nobody wants to pay for them now. So why build it? We want to jump on the next exhibit so we can.
I was gonna try to bring this to closure. If there's anybody that's got some urgent thought that's coming to
So
mind, let's
we
move
hit
on to
the
the next
water.
exhibit.
Okay. What I see on the water is a fairly large water feature. I don't know how you would define that, but that's what I see. I see pedestrian access around the water feature, and I see a fountain and/or moving water, not just a dead pond. Is that kind of what you see, Birch?
Yeah, I think, as you look at it, as you lay it out, you're probably, you got this, and that one, probably most respected what I'm seeing. What would be nice to have a little area where it can mist over on people, they can walk in between them. I don't want to make a splash park by no means, but, you know what I'm saying, hot summer day.
But I think the major features that we want to codify are, does anybody else have any thoughts?
And I agree on all of that. I think the depiction of the elements in the third one down on the right is boring. I'd scratch that. It's just me. And the one above that, those are some pretty gigantic water features as far as the height they achieve. And that's going to be a pretty expensive thing to do and probably high maintenance. We need to establish what kind of a range of heights we're going to have. Is it all going to be at 3 feet or do we expect some to get up
So
to 10
this,
feet?
this and this one are probably your most low maintenance ones you can do.
What happened to the
Just shut the
engineering
water
study
off.
that said you couldn't have a fountain because the water was gonna blow everywhere because there was too much wind?
Right, but you're gonna be, here you're gonna be inside some buildings. You'll have, the exposed west ingress, but I think, plus with pickleball going first, it's gonna block the wind a little bit now from that direction. But, you're gonna have a little wind, it's gonna blow, it's gonna get wet. But, No, walk around the other side. You don't want to be wet.
Oh, I don't have
Get wet on
I
this.
don't have a problem with it. That was just a huge discussion several months ago.
Yeah, it was.
So I was confused.
So some of the comments I made, I prefer the features that have the opportunity to be interactive. And you mentioned the top right is one that is closer to one of the three that were closer. To me, that one's not as, I mean,
It's not as
the
fun.
landscape sets you back off it from a distance and, so I like the ones that have the opportunity for interaction. I prefer to have something that has a vertical element so you can see it. Like the lower left one, when it's off, that's just concrete.
You're right. Yeah.
Whereas like the second down on the left, when it's off, it's still got visual interest. Well, I was thinking the second one down, not the second one up.
Okay.
The one that's got the barricaded blocks in there. That's got a lot of visual interest even when it's off. It still becomes a seating area. It's just, it doesn't go to just a piece of flat concrete when it's off season.
I would encourage it to be off the ground, just so that way it's not like the fountain feature we have at Grantham Plaza, where during the summer it turns into an impromptu splash pad. So I would have it be more visually appealing as opposed to people just wanting to go and get wet.
What was that you were saying?
At Grand Junction Plaza, like with all the events that we'd be having, kids would show up in their swim trunks and run through this little strip of water fountains that we have there.
Yeah.
So,
Which is kind of what Andre was saying, have some vertical elements, so it's just not flat.
yeah.
So there's some,
Or delineation of it, so, you know, it's defined area versus just a surface down there. Okay.
Doesn't have to be overly elaborate, like the third one down on the left, but interesting paving, not just one paver style and size all throughout the area. It'd be helpful to have some colors and designs, even if it's just a random pattern with 3 different colors and maybe one texture, but something that adds a little bit of other kind of visual interest that is not a seasonal thing.
Is that city center, is that where that picture is, all the favors? That's such a formal look. Doesn't seem contextual with what you're doing up there.
Which one are you talking about?
The second one up on the left.
So a way that I envision that being in the ordinance would be, you know, hardscape patterns with multiple colors, maybe multiple textures, and maybe multiple materials. That'd be something that we could explore. So it's not just one sea of, you know, one monoculture pavement. But, you know, that's a way that we could write that into an ordinance.
And, you know, I like the option to change color of lights also there.
Oh, yeah.
we're gonna let you do whatever you want there. I'm not gonna regulate your lights and what color they are.
Feedback on the process as we go. It didn't occur to me when I was marking on my screen, but as we're all discussing these, we should put numbers on all the images that we can refer to. Number 4 instead of
Second to the left.
second to the left, whatever.
We hit
Lost
this
other
one
thoughts
hard.
on water feature? Move on to the
I guess I'm just wondering when, I
pedestrian
mean, this is one of the bigger features, so I'm wondering, like, when would this go in?
This would
When
go
we
in when
time
we
it.
do the, well, I think, you know, when we build the corner, we should go ahead and build, I have to build a stub road in anyways to the north of the new building. I think we ought to put it in there, at least have a landing zone. I may not have all the Airbnbs ready to go, but we at least put it in, because you'll have parking lot all the way to there, right? Or a parking lane to get there. So our idea was to go around it. So I think we can put it in when we do the commercial recreational building on the corner.
It makes most sense to me to do this, I mean, at least while the mixed-use buildings that are gonna surround it are going in. So we
No.
don't have that issue where it's like, okay, we put this in, and now we're limited in building placement.
Yeah, that's true.
Because of that. And it would seem to make sense that you want it as a fairly big feature for the mixed-use buildings. So kind of designing the mixed-use buildings, if you will, around it seems to make the most sense to me, just so you're not hemmed in.
But just so we're clear, that's probably the last part that will be done. I think the two bigger buildings will go simultaneously in 23, and we get those in, and then we'll start on Airbnb in 24, 25. I mean, I like to build them faster, but two things are kind of against me there. The cost for commercial buildings are coming down, but apartment construction's still way up here. And with interest rates, it's a little harder to get done. We'll get it there. I mean, a lot of interest for it, but, you know, I see the pickleball and the corner commercial building probably going almost the same time. So Grand Park Boulevard will spring up. And then working our way east, I see the church and the reception hall going probably late 23, early 24. And then the last phase would be the Airbnb and the retail. Because I think the weekly, as they build out those homes, that makes the retail people feel a lot more comfortable about going in. You gotta have the rooftops to get the commercials going.
So Pam and Kevin and Weston, we have requirements like for amenity centers in residential, and that there have to be a certain number of dwelling units or whatever, you know, and then the amenity center has to be started or whatever. Is there some formula, and I'm not asking for you to answer tonight, that would satisfy what we're talking about, with Cindy saying it doesn't ever all get built and then this never gets done?
There are ways to do it. Like I said, I know at least at the Spring Mill Station PUD, they had very specific requirements about when things had to go in as far as number of, if there are several buildings, but one of them was this item has to be in before the permit is released for the third building of buildings,
Right.
A, B, C, D, E.
If that's important to Cindy or to staff, then maybe you could work with a developer to figure
Yeah,
out
and
what would
it could be
next.
before any of the buildings in the mixed-use bubble area are permitted.
Right.
You know,
And
it
I
has
don't
to be
wanna make the-
approved with the development plan of the
Right.
mixed-use area. I
Okay.
mean, there are several ways to do it.
Okay, and I'm not gonna make that call, I don't know when it's appropriate, but that would be something that it sounds like people might wanna have in there.
There's two different types of housing product that Lennar's, or Weekly rather, say be doing.
There's actually 3, yes.
So I'm just looking at the site plan. There's
You got
that other here.
36 footers, 60 footers, and 90 footers.
Are they gonna be working on all of them all at the same time, or is it targeted?
Well, I'm
to
gonna
be-
meet with them, get back, obviously, you know, with the current, shift in housing, I would imagine they probably hit the 36 and 60s pretty hard. But, the 90 footers to me are what's gonna sell quick. I mean, that's where I'm going.
Those are the ones that are the furthest north.
Yeah, the ones along the Monon around the big
They've been
lake.
around the, yeah.
Those.
3 sides of that are the 90s, and then it's the 60s, and those are the smallest.
36s.
Why I'm asking is knowing what they're working on and how fast those things might be absorbed may help pick a number to say, when they hit this many permits, then we need to start looking at when to pull the trigger on the next thing that we're talking about here.
So really, they're kind of off on their own doing that a little bit. I did talk with the president today. They were hoping to do essentially a 2-phase deal originally, start on the east, split it. But, that may get pushed to, a 3-phase, depends on development costs. Like I said, prices are coming down, I think, contractors aren't beating us over the head like they were, 6 months ago, because they see it too. I mean, permits have slowed down. Once housing slows down, everything else slows down. It's just gonna be a year lag from now.
So does anybody have anything else on the water features?
Hmm.
Or we're ready to move on to the promenade?
I'm ready to move on. I've already got pedestrian promenade pictures in front of me. And they sort of all mixed use, or not mixed use. Pedestrian and plaza can sort of commingle here, I think, to some degree.
So for Exhibit G, the promenade, I saw large areas of green or maybe large is the wrong word. I saw areas of green, landscaped areas. I saw pedestrian walkways that interconnect to larger common areas with seating. Is that what,
Say with seating?
with seating?
And this may be another area where perhaps we could use a little delineation on where things occur, because there are some of these images, the middle one top, the second one up on the right, between buildings or up close to buildings, great. But then out in the actual deeper into the promenade area or whatever the terminology would be, more grass area, more open space, things like that. And what I was looking for is like a usable space. It's not a strip that just gives you aesthetically, here's a piece of green, it's somebody's throwing a frisbee, whatever, kind of in between there, if that fits into what is. So the top left does that. But some of the other ones, like the bottom right, does not. I was looking for that balance of hard and softscape there. I did not care for, I like it in places where you just see it, but where you want to use it, I didn't care for like the native plant, I don't even know there's a native. But the not mowed area, the second one down on the left, I wouldn't look for something like that. People probably plowing through there and knocking it down anyway.
Right. I think usable is a key word.
Usable.
Well, I think we'll revisit this with some other character exhibits and share them again between now and then. Because, the promenade I was envisioning would be, kind of be you have the front from this way, the front from this way of the retail looking into the promenade. So people are out here going back and forth, kind of like Disney, I used it before. It was like Pigeon Forge or so forth, how they had a big no automobiles, just a big walking area. Here, because we're so rectangular in shape of the dirt, my shape, I was thinking of having one straight line through the middle of it that people can walk from one Grand Park Boulevard to Harvest Trails and not have to deal with any cars. Keep parking on both sides of it. So, just because the cost of the grant, having a frisbee throwing area is probably not real high on my list, to be honest. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like some grassy area where we throw blankets down or
Even that, yeah, right. It's a usable space. It's not just a planting bed around the trees where you've got, like the second one down on the left is not something you can go into and use.
Well, why I didn't plan an amphitheater or anything outside is because I got residential. I wasn't wanting late night, partying out in front of these things, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I wanted, people, Saturday night maybe, but yeah, I see what you're saying. I think we, probably.
It could even be outdoor seating for restaurants that are
Yeah.
facing the center.
Yeah, well, I see that big sidewalks. I want,
Yeah.
Everybody to be able to sit outside and then have a big enough restaurant to go inside for the winter. I just don't want this place shut down in the winter. I gotta keep it humming. So this kind of walkway, I kind of like, but if you want more green, maybe we make this front of that building, put green down the middle that way. It really gets down to how much geometry we want to eat up with this. So we only got 3 stories to work with. So if you take away horizontal, I only got 3 stories to work with. Unless you guys want to give me 5.
You can do it.
Here.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
On both the promenade and plaza exhibits, you have an image that includes what appears to be the same fireplace. Something that would,
Yeah, there was a fireplace in there.
so there's a bigger one on the exhibit H for the plaza. Is that, this looks like the thing that's out at Hamilton Town Center, I believe. But I think that'd be a great element to have, and that's gonna stretch your seasons a little bit. People will gather around the fire when it's pretty chilly outside. Whereas if you didn't have that, some of those folks might.
So
throw
is
away
this
or go
the
inside.
plaza we're talking about in front of, on the corner, Weston?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, the
I
six
just
of it.
scrolled down because you mentioned that exhibit. I think we're still really on
that's
this
true,
one,
yeah.
but
But a fireplace would seem to be very useful in this area for the people staying there, so they can go grab a cup of coffee and sit outside, have a place to eat ice cream, whatever.
Something bigger than what's at Clay Terrace.
I mean, during COVID, a
Can't
lot
get
of
too many people around
restaurants
that.
set out heaters so people can sit outside. Certainly at all ski resorts have outdoor dining and people are just standing out there in their ski clothes. That would give you more season for business, but I think Andre's usable space is probably a key term.
While you may not have frisbee playing area, in our family, we refer to those as friend makers.
I want them to pay to go inside the pickleball and play.
Well, that's
Right.
a good plan. It's like, my kids, whenever they started throwing one of those around, after wondering, who are these people?
Hi, anybody
I
know
didn't
how
bring
many
any
pickleball
kids.
courts there are in Hamlin County? Anybody want to guess?
No,
Anybody want to guess how many there are in central Indiana? This will blow your mind. I don't even know. There's 178
Is that many?
pickleball courts in Marion County and Hamlin County. Majority of them are outdoor, and only the new ones being built down in Carmel have a true playing surface. So we really got a great opportunity here with what we're doing. So, but I just had the report come in today. I was kind of happy.
let's help get this done quick so you can jump on the competition. Do we need to talk about the pedestrian promenade anymore, or time to move on to Plaza?
I see what Andre wants. Yeah, we'll figure that one out.
So Bert, something kind of cool to look at is this AT&T Discovery area in Dallas. I was in Dallas in May, and I think it might give you some really good ideas for this area. They actually did artificial turf, and I don't know that you're interested in that, but it's sparing, and did some different levels. I was just pulling it up on my phone to see if it had pretty good, and it does have pretty good pictures of it, but it's the AT&T Discovery District. But it's pretty much exactly what you are wanting to do here.
Is that Dallas?
That's- There's gonna be part of it, you're gonna go. It's a little too complicated. AT&T did a whole screen on a building that's like 8 stories tall. It's very cool. Yeah, that's their headquarters.
I'm actually gonna show you that screen out the Grand Millennium.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Give me a couple more months. I gotta get this one done.
All right.
Be on to the next one?
I think so. I'm ready.
So Plaza, the bubble, Weston, we're talking about the corner, right, northeast corner here?
If you can pull up the site. Yeah.
Yep, the bottom left corner of that orange.
Yeah, right here, northeast corner. So I think if you jump ahead, Cindy, you might remember this, well, all of you might, you were on the, you remember when I looked at the Link property, the Throgmorton property before COVID? Had that cool building plan with that huge plaza out front? So we're taking that rendering and adjusting it for the site. Obviously changing the, instead of it being like this, we're turning it back like this, having a big courtyard out front. So the plaza I envision is probably closer, gosh, maybe this without the grass, because you got the street coming in. It's all gonna be outdoor benches, seats, steps, people mingling out there, lights, that kind of attract people in, and then, I want people to linger at where I'm at,
So
I
none of
want
those
them to buy food and sit there and eat.
None of those pictures really do justice to what
Not
you're.
as much as I think, until we go to that building. Can we jump ahead to that building, Weston? Did you add it?
Yeah.
You did?
Scroll down. The one in the middle.
Yeah, it'd be like this. If you remember this building, that's my entrance into the commercial rec, having this big outside plaza area right on the corner. You just, boom, you're in it. And, come in with shaded areas, colored shade, benches. Here I put fire pits, lights, hey, you just got done with the ball game, come here, I want you over here.
So maybe we need a different set of pictures, because I don't think any of those show what you really,
Well, that plaza one, I think we could,
And the one you pointed to is the yard, so I mean, like I said, I'm good with that.
which one?
which one is that?
The one with the green space in the middle, just replacing that with fire pits, whatever have you, you good with me?
Okay.
So it's gonna have, that's the corner, northeast corner is what we're talking about here is the plaza out in front of this big building.
So it's gonna be a gathering place for people and,
Yeah,
I do think you might need some new, these character exhibits.
nobody's built what I want, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, they're so diverse in a way, not that it needs to show exactly what you're gonna build, but one of them has a substantial amount of green space, which sounds like you're not going to do, so let's axe that as a character exhibit. I like the ones that have some vertical, like you said, something that's attracting interest, drawing people in, so you're seeing it. It's giving you some shade, except the one that looks like a bus stop.
I don't like that.
That's the Midtown Plaza in Carmel.
Where's that?
Midtown
I
Plaza.
can't picture where that piece is.
Looks better than it does in that picture.
yeah.
It does not look like a bus
It's
stop.
based
Well,
on-
everybody here should be glad that I don't know Carmel. So I don't have to go down there for everything.
So would it be appropriate just to do a sketch of kind of what you generally?
A what? I'm
A
sorry.
sketch, just a sketch, if you can't find a picture, just say, here's the corner, there'll be gathering areas here and the buildings here.
And I think I could take my rendering of the other building and invert it and show you a plaza.
Because if it's gonna be more like that one, which is the hardscape
It is all.
style plaza, then let's not represent it like that one.
They have nice ADA compliance to get up there, but, big steps that people sit on. You don't chase people away out in front of your business, you know what I mean? Like some places, you want them there.
Yeah.
Because I think more activity that breeds more activity. And again, lights, But all these lights are facing away from residential, I won't put anything in the building on the multi-use side will block any of the lights. I mean, I'm gonna be, Weekly is putting a big investment up there. I'm not gonna damage his, with any of my lights. So on the plaza, what do you think? You wanna see a different rendering? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm on board with what it is that you're describing, once the renderings catch up with that. My opinion.
Kevin, are you taking notes? Thank you. But we need to beat the plaza up.
I think we've done it. Let's go ahead and talk about the mixed use area.
From an apartment standpoint, some of these images were taken from the previous PUD because this exhibit would more or less replace the previous exhibit, so just a heads up on that as you're looking through these. If someone's opinion suddenly changes about something that's approved, I guess that's what I want to do.
So I don't envision a lot of freestanding, smaller buildings along 191st Street. I really don't. Trader Joe's has come out and looked at it. And, and then Nealers, if you're familiar with the Nealers, they would want a 15 to 20,000 square foot grocery store, which a Nealers or a Trader Joe's works real good against Grant Park in Chatham, because it's a grocery store desert up there. You got, along with medical, if you think about it, there's not anything out there. So, you got a real good medical deal working on the pickleball, big. So, I think I'm more concerned about what we decide about on first floor retail and 2-story above it, or or if you guys allow me another story to really mix the buildings up. But, you know, so here. But I think once we pick a theme of a building, it'd be the same throughout. You know, I don't see a hodgepodge of yellow, green, pink buildings like Florida, you know what I'm saying? Or different heights, dramatic height difference. You know, maybe a 2-story building here, 3 here, 4 here, like that. But I see heavily masonry, flat roofs, you know, but with the retail aspect of it, I see overhangs out front, you know, probably better than these. This is kind of what I did at Starbucks here. This is probably not a good one. But I'm open for comments on this one.
First, the first one you pointed to, the middle one on the left,
This one here.
my favorite one on the picture, or on this. on
Yeah, it
this
has
page.
good breaks in the building,
A
that's
lot
for
of
sure.
breaks in the building, a lot of variety to the, it's not a straight flat facade. It's cohesive and there's context to it,
Yeah.
but it's certainly not boring. And a comment that I made on several of these that I like, you all already said the keyword here, lots of masonry. Could use some masonry, but with other materials mixed in for interest, like your awnings and other areas like that. So those are the things that I liked. I didn't care, like the REI, the one big single, I don't see that in there. I'm surprised that exhibit was in there. I think that one should go.
Yeah, that and the one next to it and the one
Which one?
above it.
The REI, and the one above it.
Yeah, yeah, we can pull those.
The two I thought would be the best to try to work towards are the two that are in the middle.
I don't like it.
They're distinctly different buildings, but they have variations in plane and different heights to some degree. I like the height of the building on the right in the middle because you presumably in that one, from the looks of the windows, have taller interior spaces. Maybe it is a 2-story, but something where you can get more unique window appearance. I thought it was kind of helpful to.
See, that's where we need also come to agreement. We say 3 stories or 60 foot or 3 stories or 40 foot. I mean, you know, what do you consider a story? You know, 13 foot? You know, I mean.
I leave it up to staff.
Yeah.
They have definitions for that.
So we need to have.
Well, I'd like to have a little more flexibility on building height and mixed use if it goes with retail.
Yeah, for us, 3 stories do not, a story does not equate to a certain height. It is a building
Level of
floor.
apartment.
I guess you get some questions when we see mezzanines and things like that. Generally, a mezzanine is not considered a story by itself. But yes, there is no set 3 stories equals 30
Right.
feet equals 40
And as I
feet.
recall, the PUD doesn't say heights, it says stories, right?
I think we do have a max 60 feet in some area, 40 feet in the other. So let's say who said the high ceiling is like 14 foot for retail, then coming back 10, you know, with, you know, I hate small cramped apartments or hotel rooms.
So do I.
Ceiling. So, you know, I'd like to at least vault the area overlooking the promenade, you know, with a balcony, right? And then, you know, if you're gonna cut it back there. The problem is that you get apartment developers that wanna make more money per square foot, so they shrink their apartment heights, you know, they're like 9 foot, boom, boom. I'd like to have flexibility, especially along the promenade, to have a higher front in the front and then taper to the back. Just for looks, I don't know. But what did we decide on? Do we have a foot?
In the current PUD for District 1, maximum building height 60 feet, except when adjacent to residential units, then the maximum is 3 stories.
3 stories.
Right.
Which if we don't have a,
So if we have 40
Could be
40
60
stories,
feet.
it could be right at,
Yeah.
you know, 42.
Yeah, so you have flexibility there.
and I'd be happy if you used it. Bring us
So of
something
these
good.
character exhibits, we're only talking about this one so far. That's the only one that catches people's eye.
Yeah,
that
Well, I
one next
referenced the
right.
one immediately to the right as well.
That one too.
Mhm.
That's where the taller first floor with interesting windows that are higher than just what you would normally see. I thought that was kind of a fun touch.
First, do you have somebody that's working with you to help write some of this? I mean, I know Jim's here. Is he doing the writing of this or?
It's staff helps a lot.
So staff's really working for you then?
No, I'll write it, they'll edit it. I mean, at the end of the day, until they approve it. But they've been very helpful. Always have.
Do we want colored roofs? I don't know, like the blue in this bottom left.
Well, that's a metal roof, so you're not gonna put that on a residential.
No, but I'm just not sure it's in context with those two above it that we were.
Well,
I can do it on the face.
But I heard you say flat roof earlier, which means that
Yeah.
image doesn't really fit.
Then, well, if you had a one-story along 191st Street, technically, we could build minimum 5,000 square foot. Like, you know, I just don't see it happen, because between the owned ground and leased ground, it's gonna be hard to plan it, so this is probably not very likely.
So can we just pull it out?
Yeah, we can.
Is
I
that
mean, we
okay?
can put
Is
color
it
here
okay?
and color there, if we took this type of building.
From what I hear you guys say, you want to pull that one out, you want to pull the REI out.
Yeah.
And what else? And the one above the REI?
And then on Joy, or whatever that is,
Well,
enjoy.
and to Kristen's point, so pull that image out where the cursor is right now, but do we also want to say has to be flat roof
No.
to
No.
avoid that? No, we don't.
I don't think so.
I mean, we don't want to,
They'd still have to like screen all their utilities and have parapets and stuff like that.
If it's a flat roof, yes.
I guess I don't know. I try not to limit somebody, but if we need to, that's fine. I don't have any feeling on that. I don't.
For what we've been talking about, I was certainly not anticipating something that would have a true pitched roof to it. Maybe something that looked a little pitched to form a parapet to hide mechanical equipment,
but
but
the
not to
sure,
actually.
a true, like that. It's
A freestanding building button like that, you know, I don't need it to hit my goals, so it'd be up to you guys, leave it in. But that brings up a point, the parapet wall to screen HVAC, you know, that may look, I mean, it may make the top story look a little, a little higher, well, be higher.
Yeah.
But the building itself won't be, I'll probably put a 5-foot parapet wall up there to hide my, as I break things through. Because I don't see any ground units on any of this stuff.
I would hope not.
None, there'd be none, it'd be all in the air.
I don't think you can, the way it's written, Ron.
No.
We have it all in there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's written that way, but
It's
the
not.
screening, the screening will probably come more in play on the big FECs. But they should be tall enough, 60 foot, I'll be able to hide everything there.
I guess when I hear everybody talking, I sometimes think we get into too much detail, but I hear you like the masonry, you like different, I can't remember how Andre put it when you talked about that third one down on the left, different angles or heights
I don't
or,
know what I said, but yeah.
it was good, whatever you said. I think those are two things that can certainly come out of this.
That's a pretty expensive building too.
I figured it's the most expensive one on the page.
This one's the easiest one to build. But no, that one looks cool. But see how they put the trees in the concrete? That's kind of the options we want to have, instead of having a big long row of grass and around the buildings. You want to make it more kind of.
Well, then there's more place for people to walk and circulate.
And so a question on the promenade, we won't have a regulation about fences around restaurants, right? You know how people like to fence in their tables? Do we have a problem with that? Is that something we need to deal with?
Wanting to do it or not?
Wanting to do
You're
it.
wanting to do it, yeah, that's all handled in our outside
I think
cafe and eating.
If you have alcohol, you have to have them anyway.
Have to.
Have to, okay.
There's circulation standards for outdoor cafes as well too, like you can't block or obstruct them.
Sidewalks.
So that's why we
Sidewalk.
just make fat sidewalks so people walk around.
Yeah,
Some kind of
some type of barrier.
Type of barrier.
Because what I've learned to do, I want to rent the outdoor space just as much as the indoor space. That's total square footage. Anything left on this one?
I'm good on mixed use area. Everybody else?
Okay, so this is cool. This is in California. And the church is, forget the water feature, we're gonna have a pond between the park and the church on the back. You know, they, this, I don't even know if they both, but this is the, they wanted to go with, you know, something that screamed church and has a little timber. I don't know, did you put the interior photos on here, Western, of the church? That's it, yeah.
No, the interior photos aren't on here. We,
Okay. So if you look inside of it, it's all wood. You look down at the ceiling, it's all, you know, nice wood, you know, coming down and.
we wouldn't regulate the interior design of
Right.
the church, so
So,
That's
we're
beautiful.
not gonna.
yeah,
mess that
so
up.
this is the old church that ended up staying at Centennial, Cross Point, I think. And then, but, you know, any of the churches, we wanted to scream church, have a steeple. People look at it instead of, you know, what is that? Is that a school or is that, you know, they wanted to be a church. And so the only adjustments I want to have to is at the front, I want the elevation a little higher so we have steps for wedding pictures out in front of the church. So by adding the Girth property and the access to the moat on there, and that I've reached a deal with Girth and Hinky on the drainage. Hinky may even throw in his acreage, but he kind of sees a vision. We can have picture areas, you know, like, you know, vines here, you know, roses here. You can go around and get your wedding pictures after. And then on Sundays and Wednesdays, the reception hall becomes the family life center for the church, for their kids. So we haven't figured out exactly how we'll connect it. Here we did. But, you know, we haven't connected it to this yet.
So
But
when
it would be the same thing.
I look at these birch, I see, and when I hear you speak, the only thing I could put under here is the church should have a steeple. Other than that, I don't have any other regulations or thoughts or materials or anything else.
Yeah, just from a staff perspective, a lot of the other exhibits have some variety to them, which is why this exhibit has, you know, a more defined vision, maybe more contemporary vision, maybe more traditional vision, to maybe provide some opportunity for flexibility there. That was kind of our thought on this.
Right, and I don't
So-
care. I guess,
But-
I mean, I don't want to regulate
We had a
whether
similar
it's a
discussion.
rustic or a traditional. I think what Birch is saying that is a common denominator is they want to have a steeple. And beyond that, I don't know.
And we don't regulate steeple height, so.
Right.
No, I know.
So you can go as high as you want.
You know, the other areas are going to be areas where we're talking about traffic patterns and people working. This is an entirely different animal, and I'm not sure how much regulation,
I think they want to
other than,
incorporate the wood here.
if
Yeah,
you want to,
more
you know,
so
things
the
that you-
building
that
material
sort of-
issue,
yeah,
the
if you
wood,
want to
timber.
include things that could be codified, you know, a bullet point list of things you want here, that's fine. I'm just saying, I don't, this is a different animal. This is a single building, and I don't know that that's something I want to say, I want it to be brick, or I want it to have multiple angles. I think the important thing here is you want it to look like a church, and you want it to have a steeple, and there may be other things that you want to put in, or you may want to leave it open, but we can, you know, micromanage this forever, and I don't want to do that.
I'm happy
Well, I
with the
think the
separation of
behind
church and
the
state
church
here,
will
let
like-
the church do the church stuff.
Yeah, and for me, it doesn't have anything to do with church and state, it's just, this is a separate entity, and
Right.
it doesn't require, I think, a lot of regulation by
It's
us.
on a completely different site.
So if I could leave these character exhibits and then add the material, the wood,
Yeah,
that's all we need.
we would need to
right?
codify using
Right,
wood as like a primary building material on the exterior. That would be something that we would need to.
is that what you're talking about, wood as a primary building exterior?
Well,
Exterior?
So this is, so how you erect this is like a tinker toy set.
Right,
These are timber frame columns and beams. So this is, yeah. So
I just
the wood-
I don't want you to box yourself in case they
Right.
want to do something.
Well, I
like
know,
that.
I like to have all options, but I want to add wood.
Okay,
It may need to be added as a
As a
permission,
permitted.
Yeah.
not a
permitted
requirement.
right.
Because right now, I don't think I could use that much wood on
I would support any of those. I like all those images, and all my comments have to do with the materiality of the wood, the stone, the masonry. And it's not gonna be a polished steel type building. It's actually kind of blends over toward the side where the park is a little bit, right? It's in between that.
So the park,
and
you know, and then the pond, and then we're looking at the great view, so that the back of the church will look right at the pond and the park. So it'll be heavy glass, so we can either light it up to look outside, or turn it off, so that whoever's having a wedding or during a preacher, so we'll look at him versus the outside, but we're gonna have cool glass on the back, so you look through the church, you'll see the pond.
So Andre, what I hear you saying are natural materials,
Yeah.
all of those things.
For the most part, it doesn't have to be super earthy, but yeah, they're relatively natural materials, where this isn't gonna be ultra urban looking. That wouldn't fit this environment.
No. That one's easy.
Thank you. Description.
Exhibit K, commercial and recreational facility and racket center.
Okay, so obviously we're using precast, architectural breaks in it. On the bigger 200,000 square foot building, I don't remember what Dane said about the roof line, but that was fine. So what you're gonna see, actually, I wanna use all these materials, but let's go to the next page. So what I wanna do is take this building and kind of downsize some of the glass out here, still have the main entrance. But I like the pickleball to kind of balance this one, because this will be shorter in height. Okay, because pickleball, I need to have 40-foot clear on the edge for tennis. So I think this one out here, what I zoned in for, is only like 28, 30 feet.
Square footage?
No, height.
It's all one
part of that
area,
same
so.
district.
So
I want to kind of balance the two buildings.
Yeah, just to be clear, right now, these are broken out into two separate exhibits.
Right.
One for the Racket Center and one for the
Yeah.
adjacent recreation facility that's attached to the plaza. So,
and there are already requirements for building materials on these buildings, and they have to fit the 32 overlay.
that's correct. They
So
can
I
use-
guess I don't have much more to offer on.
Yeah, there's, in the existing PUD today, there's some language for
Yeah.
tilt-up concrete panels for buildings over a certain square footage that these buildings would.
I think we guys came in like on the Pacer Fieldhouse, you know, that precast you put on that. You guys hit it pretty hard on the brakes, on the color.
And I wasn't sure, admittedly, I didn't go back and see what's already in the ordinance. We're not revisiting the whole thing now, but I didn't know if the one on the bottom one had enough brakes for that, or
It didn't.
obviously the left end of that looks great, but the other part might not actually comply with that yet.
And I don't suppose you guys change your mind, let me build another Pro X building out there with you. Boy, you sure can't slip everything in. No, I think you'll like what we built. I'll stick within what we got. I mean, it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, so you planning on doing tilt up, or that's a possibility?
We will be doing till
Well, so the one on top right, looks like that's a pre-engineered metal building,
it does.
lightly dressed up.
Yeah.
Which
And, yeah,
typically then, as soon as you get away from the adornments at the key corner, it looks just like a pre-engineered metal building, so that one might
drop out.
be.
Got slightly look of the roof line too.
That's the upper right.
Yeah, upper right.
Just when we listen back, we can remember.
I like the porky shell.
Yeah, I mean, I like those features on it, but,
Take those away and
Yeah.
it's Lowe's.
yep.
Let's see the upper left one with that out area. Pickleball have the same thing. What we gotta decide, there's no money in doing outdoor pickleball. I mean, Chatham just added 6, Bridgewater added 6. I'm not gonna compete if guys are already going to Chatham, Bridgewater, play outdoor pickleball. I want the indoor business. But at the same token, if you look at the most popular restaurant in the country, growing the fastest, it's called Chicken and Pickle. These things are booming across the country. They have outdoor and indoor pickleball. So I'm thinking about, where we had that 3 rows of parking out front. There's not even put parking out front of this building, other than I need for ADA and all that. And putting 3 outdoor pickleball, real light with cool. So the sports bar or the restaurant bar inside the pickleball has an outdoor pickleball right there. And then the pickleball goes away, people can use it for cornhole, whatever. So, 191st Street's gonna be well treated here. I think that's the money shot. Any other comments on this one?
I'm just looking at the things that I circled are all the key areas of glass.
You don't like them?
Drawn, no, circled, like to draw people in, which is, I know what you're doing. Right. It would be that plan.
That pagoda look is what I was kind of, one on the one side. I don't want 2 pagodas, but and it may not be pagoda. I was more when I was looking at J.
Next on that, pagoda to me doesn't fit. But having a lot of glass draws people in.
This corner,
I love that one.
well, because, you take it above your roof line, put lights up there. I like that corner.
This is just a thought, but from a staff perspective, these 2 exhibits could be combined, if that would be something that everyone would be interested in. They're both recreation facilities that are of substantial size. It may just eliminate an issue down the road. The characteristics, just based on what I'm hearing, sound.
If there would be a benefit
fairly
to staff's enforcement of all of this, the administration of the PUD going forward, if they were combined, I'd have no problem with that.
Okay. It's just, as I'm hearing this conversation, that's just something that
I agree.
may make more sense to have some more continuity between the 2 buildings because they will be rather large in size and they'll be very visually connected, maybe a little bit better. There's more opportunity for similar design elements between each of these exhibits to just be merged together.
I can see that.
Okay.
That's it, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, the bottom of the middle, the next row up where the cursor is and directly to the right.
Yeah. This one here.
That one, the one to the right. Those 2 are so distinctly different. I'm curious, how this translates into verbiage. The one on the right has a tall section of glass which is projected and it has an overhang beyond it, and that is a lantern. Takes you right in there. You want to go see what's in that building. The one on the left, I don't care what's in there, that's just somebody's office. That's the vibe it gives off. And yet, it has a tall section of glass. It has an awning that sticks. So verbiage-wise, if we're not careful, those are the same, and yet they do not draw the same reaction.
Yeah, so the 032 overlay applies here. And that was, when we were discussing this with the petitioner, that requires enhanced entryways in the buildings with some sort of decorative architectural elements and that sort of thing. So I think you are on the right track there, that's kind of the idea, to provide some sort of entry element that distinguishes, if we're doing the tilt-up concrete panels, if that's permitted, somehow that there would be some sort of defined
May
entryway
need
here.
to amend that section though, because part of the enhanced entry features requires increased use of masonry around the entrance. So the 32 overlay doesn't really allow for that substantial glass entrance. So we should probably amend that in the ordinance language. But other than that, I see what you're saying, that those 2 would be the same. I don't know how to say substantial glass element, but it has to be this way. I guess you need to look at, is it that it's higher than the other parts of the building, or is it that it's projected further forward than the other parts of the building?
Yeah.
Either or, both. Those are things we could add in.
And that's where I'm kind of dancing on that line of not wanting to get back into this being a design commission. It is still planning. But the point is that it doesn't look like an office park. It looks like a big entertainment, recreation, and very interesting commercial type stuff. It's the building on the right really says, the one on the left doesn't.
Well, probably went both to the one on the bottom too.
Mhm.
That was a racing one, and I was talking to Sam Schmidt.
Yeah, that was his Park 100.
He does. Well, it's close to Park 100, Speedway.
Yeah.
I think we can come up with something, but I can assure you, both buildings are gonna have something like this here. I mean, I wanted this gonna be the inside kind of food court, and that would have a bunch of tables inside of it too. So you go over here, bowl, we go over here, arcade, laser flash, but the bar and the food's here. That way people can walk out here and sit, you know. But I wanted enough indoor space because, you know, come September, October, people like being inside. Go back up to the one before, please. But now that I sit here and think on it, that is a pretty cool entryway. I mean, you could set that on the corner facing 191st Street, work around that. The pagoda being round, you could set it right on the radius of the corner. But I think we can write something up, don't you think, Pat?
Are there any images that anyone wants to strike out of this? Just while we're on this.
They want to strike.
That sounds like
It's that one on the bottom one.
The bottom one.
Right.
Well, can you go up one more? On the
Go back
page
up.
above. That last one on the left.
This one,
Yeah.
recreational center.
Well, like we were talking, I mean, you know, the front part would be fine, but I don't think that the rest is something we could sign on for.
Yeah, I think when we look at the big pickleball, we will have to address the long sides of the building. And so my thought was 191st Street would be kind of the two-story, you know, locker room, gym and all that, health provider. So it would kind of hide the precast. There would be a lot of glass on that. It's the sides that we really have to deal with. You know, along Grand Park Boulevard would be the east elevation and the west elevation. The back, I'm gonna put another element entrance. So let's say you're just a pickleball user, you can come in one door and go straight to your court. You know, you just want to play and leave. Well, but if you want to be a platinum member, you want the locker room and all the goodies, you come in the front side, you know, so the north and the south elevations, I think will be real easy to overcome. You gotta remember, these are long buildings, or tennis courts. So the east and west elevation is probably where we have to spend some time on that. If that bores you right here, you gotta figure, you know, 200,000 square feet. So how do we deal with that in what we're doing? We have breaks and architectural requirements.
Four-sided architecture, right? 32 overlay requires four-sided architecture, so
Yeah.
whatever,
A lot of this is covered by the.
whatever happens on the front is gonna need to be replicated on all sides to some degree.
Yeah, and it includes even further detail about balance of openings, windows, things like that.
Lots of plants.
Yeah.
Some trees.
So if those things are gonna be a
Foundation
problem, then we
planting.
probably need to write out
Yeah.
some of that.
So how it's gonna
I
be
don't-
breaks, I would do faux column on the outside of the building to kind of give it instead of just flat and have a break like that, maybe color. But, you know, I'm building a straight line on the inside, you know what I mean? You know,
Sure.
IRC, any court, your back walls. You know, now, we are stealing a little bit from Grand Park Event Center. Are you familiar with where they put the Colts locker rooms? You see how they did the spectator? That's perfect. Now I don't have to do an upstairs mezzanine. So I'm gonna duplicate that 2 times on each side. So you go down one side hallway, you're on the tennis squash side. This side, you're on the pickleball side. but now I have spectator seating and I didn't build an upstairs mezzanine, saving a lot of money. But the breaks will, I guess, if we have it tightly written, we'll tighten it up on the long runs.
And that's the other thing, because the plantings for a building that large, I mean, we'd have significant tree planting, I think, requirements too, to soften those long expanses, but from the looks of your plans, I don't know that you have that incorporated.
I'll probably down on the plans. But if it's in, if you see the detail, say, have Merry Christmas. But if you look at the Y engineering plans that we've done for the detailed, plans we submitted to the city, we have all our landscaping in there. That boulevard we talked about earlier, you can see it in there with every tree plant. So we've already, if it's
Well,
in.
but the buildings would have, the foundation plantings and stuff like that.
Right.
And then, wouldn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, along the front facades.
but that's only the front.
Oh,
Also,
yeah,
also
yeah,
any
and-
long
and long
facades,
facades over
80 feet in length.
The external.
Yeah, and external street frontage along the
So how wide would it need to be, that planting area?
planting area, 8 feet. For just foundation plantings against the building, it would be 8 feet. The external street frontage landscaping, it would just be 10.
Yeah, I think that's right.
This all helpful to you?
Oh, yeah.
And then This is something that,
Yeah.
it sounds like as we've been going, you've been really catch up on what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been really helpful. Like I said in the introduction, this is what we were looking for, just to kind of take the temperature. Everybody can, we can regroup with the
Well, we'll
petitioner.
regroup,
and-
and get some different character exhibits for the different ones we talked about.
Yeah.
But we can get it out way ahead of the January 14th, thing. So, this is how it should work, all this communication, that way we're not trying to guess your minds or read your minds. I'm good.
All right, you've got what you
You got it
need,
good.
there's no more questions going either way. We'll
And then,
move on to the
yeah,
rest of our meeting.
I guess we'll just provide a quick recap on next meetings. It's the 17th.
Yeah.
January is the next meeting. So the next meeting is the 17th of January.
That is a
Consecutive
public
meetings.
hearing meeting, public hearing and items of business. The next workshop is, I believe, the 24th, whatever that following Tuesday is.
My excuse.
You are excused.
Thank you, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Birch.
Yeah. Same to you guys.
Let the record show that Dr. Kelleher needed to excuse herself.
Let the record
45.
show, I still don't have a street light.
Finalizing things tonight and reports and comments. Plan commissioners, anything for the good of the order?
No, when they go raise it does.
I got nothing.
Then we'll move on to Christmas department. Do we have
We'll
some-
figure it out.
Leave us on the account, or is that-
We're gonna wait on that because MKSG wasn't able to send me the presentation, so.
Okay. City council liaison, up next.
Council met December 12th. We had the tax abatement for the expansion of the Insects Limited that was approved. And that'll be at the North Point. 2023 non-elected official salary ordinance was approved. The ordinance concerning term limits was approved at a previous meeting, but it was vetoed by the mayor. And so council re-voted on that and it passed 5-2. So it is in effect. 2 annexations approved, one for I Beach, the other for 308 East 191st Street. Grand Park Village PUD Amendment 5 and Washington Woods PUD were introduced, and we'll have APC hearing on the 17th. So if you're interested in seeing that even earlier, just go to the council agenda from December 12th, you can see that. Also introduced a vacation of public way for 203rd Street on the east side. The 2023 fee schedule the ordinance extending current road impact fees, but that was just for 2023. We normally have a 5-year plan, in the works. Because of the pandemic and other reasons, those studies didn't get done. And so we'll be completing them this year and redo those road impact fees in the zone improvement plan for the following year. A resolution adopting the zone improvement plan and incorporation of that plan into our comprehensive plan was approved. And the related impact fee ordinance will have a vote December 27th. Did I say park impact fee on that one? Have you guys seen the park plan?
We saw that the last APC meeting.
Yeah.
It was attached.
That's right. That's right. I didn't know if everyone saw that for sure. I don't know. I don't think Jenny did. I don't know if she was here. For the 2023 elected officials salary ordinance, we suspended the rules and approved it. And it has a 0% increase from 2022. We approved the very limited 2022 write-offs. I believe it was about $150. A resolution encumbering funds for the 2022 budget for spend in 23 was approved. We had guest comments, and one that I wanted to mention was a gentleman that came and discussed the need for an indoor walking facility of some sort in our community. And right now, currently, the proposed Y doesn't necessarily have that built in, I know. And he was really wanting to know why he couldn't walk at GPEC. Feeling like that should be available, if nothing else, the walkway inside GPEC in the front before you get to the fields. So it just brought up a need for the community that I hear frequently is there's some need for some indoor walking facilities.
Why would anybody want to walk on that polished, shiny concrete?
They just want to walk inside somewhere.
Be careful what you ask for.
Yeah. Well, I think they probably like to walk on the turf, but
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. We had a BZA meeting in between last time and now.
We did. We had 4 petitions that were approved. The first was a standards variance. Lennar Homes had built the foundation in the wrong spot. A year later, the owner figured it out. And they came in for just a 5-inch encroachment into the 5-foot setback line. That was approved. Let's see. Hillcrest Drive, kind of on the north side of 32, couple doors down from where that used car lot is, kind of just down the street east of the field. If you know where that car place is, there's a house couple doors down, and they want to, Dennis Hunt Insurance wants to use that for an insurance office, which seemed like a good use. That was approved. On Union Street, across from the high school, the petitioner wanted to use it for rehab. She was a physical therapist, as I recall, and she wanted to use a residential property for her practice, which is very limited in nature, and the scope of the variance was very limited to not conflict with, leave the building residential, but allow that use. That was approved. And Chris Woodard's business, Practical Property Group, a 2-year extension for his variance to continue operating as he is on Sun Park Drive for his landscaping business. He's moving to a site in Sheridan somewhere, but in order to wrap up his construction up there, he needs a little bit more time, and his variance was going to expire at the end of the year. So that was it.
Thank you. Plat committee did not meet, so no report from me on plat activities. Community Development Department. Any words of wisdom?
No, not really. But thank you everyone for your participation tonight. I think we got some good feedback. We are going to be kind of entering into our weird schedule for the first half of the year, or first couple months of the year, which is always the case. So kind of quick reminder, our first meeting of the Plan Commission will be January 17th, which is a Tuesday. but that'll be our normal first meeting of the month at City Hall. I know it's late in the month. We try to give everybody that time around the holidays off. Us, you, the public, so we're not all worrying about public hearings and things during the holidays. So 17th will be public hearing, and then immediately the next Tuesday will be a workshop meeting if needed. We probably will have, well, I don't know if we'll have any PUD items. Maybe this one will be back, I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes, but then we also might have some other discussion topics. So kind of keep that on your radar, but other than that, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
I've been doing
Be
this
safe.
long enough that I remember for quite a few years, there were just no meetings in December.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah, that,
said, no, we're not gonna do it.
I remember those days too. We got to a point where
Hard to
we
imagine
became
anymore.
too busy and
Yeah.
we couldn't afford to hold off that long anymore.
Not only do we meet multiple times.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Victor McCarty, is there a second?
Second.
From my friends at the left. Everybody in favor?
Hi. Sorry.
Anybody opposed?